I swear. I never believed it when the noise started. It sounded like scratching, sometimes like whispering. At first, I thought it was the pipes. But then I noticed the light, flickering from under the floor. The HOA president said it was just raccoons. But raccoons don't plug in phone chargers. So last night, I opened the floor myself. And what I saw down there still makes my skin crawl. Welcome back to HOA Stories. I'm Daniel. I live in a quiet cul-de-sac outside Phoenix. I've been a part of this HOA for 3 years now. And trust me, the word quiet is a lie. If you hate HOAs as much as I do, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and type BOOHOA in the comments below. Let's show these bored bullies that we're not afraid to speak up. And share this story with anyone who's ever had a creepy HOA encounter. Alright, let me tell you how it all started. It began one Thursday night. I was walking back from the mailbox when I heard it. A faint metallic thud, coming from behind the HOA storage shed. That storage room sits right next to the tennis courts. An old concrete block building with one dim yellow bulb outside. Only board members have keys to it. They keep lawn equipment, spare pool chemicals, paint cans, and supposedly old meeting files. But that night, something felt off. The light was on inside. It was never on that late. I stopped, listened. Then I heard it again, a soft shuffle, like footsteps. But slow, careful. I called out, "Hello? Anyone in there?" No answer. Just the hum of the streetlight and crickets. I almost walked away. But then I saw movement behind the frosted window. A shadow. Tall. Human. I froze. The door handle rattled, and then, silence. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it. For a moment, I thought maybe the HOA president, Linda, was inside doing inventory. But Linda doesn't do anything herself. She orders people around. And besides, it was nearly midnight. I walked closer. My phone's flashlight barely cut through the darkness. The closer I got, the colder the air felt. Then, I caught the smell. It wasn't paint or chemicals. It was something musky. Like sweat. Like someone had been living there. I pressed my ear to the door. That's when I heard the sound that still haunts me. Breathing. Slow, human breathing. I jumped back. My flashlight slipped from my hand and clattered on the pavement. The breathing stopped instantly. For a few seconds, everything went dead silent. Then the light inside clicked off. I ran home. The next morning, I went straight to Linda's house. She opened the door wearing her usual silk robe, holding a mug that said, #1HOA President. I told her exactly what I'd heard, the breathing, the light, everything. She laughed. "Oh, Daniel, please, we've had rats down there for years. You're just paranoid." I told her rats don't turn lights on and off. Her smile faded for a second, then she said, "Well, you're welcome to check it out yourself if it'll help you sleep." She tossed me a rusty key. That afternoon, I went back to the storage room. The sun was high, the courts were empty, the whole neighborhood felt normal again. I told myself maybe I was paranoid. The lock squeaked as I turned it. When I opened the door, a wave of hot, stale air hit me. The place was a mess. Shelves stacked with paint cans, a broken mower, dusty boxes. Everything looked untouched, except one thing. A section of the concrete floor near the back wall looked different. Lighter in color, with faint scrape marks along the edges. Almost like it had been moved recently. I knelt down and ran my fingers along the seam. There was a tiny gap, just wide enough for air to flow through. And it smelled like someone's room. That's when I noticed something else. A single phone charger plugged into a wall outlet, leading nowhere. The cord disappeared under the slab. I followed it with my eyes, and realized there was a faint hum coming from underneath. Like electricity. I whispered to myself, "What the hell is down there?" Before I could figure it out, I heard a soft creak behind me. The door had closed. I turned around, and saw a shape through the window. Someone was standing outside, watching me. I froze again. Whoever it was, they weren't moving. They just stood there, head slightly tilted, then slowly turned away and walked off toward the pool. When I finally stepped outside, no one was there. Just the sound of the sprinkler and the buzz of the lights. But something caught my eye. A small scrap of paper stuck to the doorframe. It had writing on it. I pulled it off carefully. It said, in shaky handwriting, "Don't tell her I'm here." I felt my stomach twist. Her? Who was her? Linda. I took the note home, locked my door, and sat at my desk staring at it for an hour. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside made me jump. The next morning, I went back to the HOA office, and that's when things really started getting strange. Linda wasn't there. Her car was parked outside, but the blinds were shut. The vice president, Mark, said she'd gone on a quick trip. But no one knew where. Later that evening, I decided to go back one last time and bring my camera. If there really was someone living under that storage room, I was going to prove it. As I packed my flashlight and camera, I remember thinking, what if they're still down there? What if they see me first? And then another thought hit me. What if Linda already knows? If you found a hidden note like that near your HOA building, would you tell the board or keep it secret? Yes. I went back to the storage room the next night. I know I shouldn't have. Every logical thought in my head told me to leave it alone. But curiosity, that strange pull of the unknown, it wouldn't let me sleep. The air was still warm from the Arizona day. But as I got closer to that little concrete building, it felt cooler, heavier, like the place itself was holding its breath. I had my flashlight, my old GoPro strapped to my chest, and that rusty key Linda gave me, which still smelled faintly like metal and dust. The pool lights were off this time. The neighborhood was dead quiet. No kids, no cars, no sprinklers, just the steady hum of the street lamp. I unlocked the door, pushed it open, and whispered to myself, "All right, let's see what's hiding in here." The smell hit me again. Not rot, not garbage. Human. That strange mixture of sweat, soap, and damp clothes. The concrete felt slightly warm under my feet. And that hum beneath the floor was louder now. I moved the boxes aside carefully, each scrape echoing louder than it should have, until I reached the discolored section of floor again. I knelt down, ran my hand along the faint line, and noticed a small metal ring embedded in the corner, like a handle that had been painted over. My pulse jumped. I hooked my fingers around it and pulled. It didn't move. I tried again, harder. Then, a click. The slab shifted upward slightly, revealing a thin crack of darkness and a gust of stale, cold air that crawled up my arm. I froze. For a few seconds, I just listened. And then, I heard it. A faint sound. A shuffle. Like someone rolling over on a mattress below me. I whispered into the dark. "Hello. Who's down there?" Nothing. Just that low hum again. But now I realized what it was. A space heater. Someone was running power down there. I lifted the slab higher. It was heavier than I expected. The smell of unwashed fabric hit me full force. I aimed my flashlight into the hole. My heart stopped. It wasn't a crawl space. It was a full room. Tiny, but real. Wooden walls. A small mattress. A backpack. And next to it, a plate with dried food on it. Instant noodles. Soda cans. Someone had been living there recently. I swallowed hard and called out again. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to talk." My voice cracked halfway through, because part of me knew someone might actually answer. Then, a voice came from below. Faint, hoarse, tired. "Please, close it. She'll hear you." I nearly dropped my flashlight. "Who will hear me?" asked. But there was no reply. Only the sound of shuffling deeper into the shadows. I didn't know what to do. Call the cops. Call Linda. But she was out of town, according to Mark. And this voice, whoever it was, sounded scared, not dangerous. I whispered again. "Are you hurt?" No reply. just a quiet sob. I lowered the flashlight and whispered, "I'll come back tomorrow, bring food, but tell me your name." Pause. Then barely audible, "Ethan." I stood there for a second, trying to breathe normally, then quietly slid the slab back over the opening, locked the door, and walked home like a ghost. All night, I couldn't stop thinking about that voice, that tone, the way he said, "She'll hear you." There was something terrified in it. At 2 a.m., I started digging online. Local missing persons, runaways, anything. And then I found it. A small article from 6 months ago. Local maintenance worker reported missing. HOA investigates possible theft. The man's name was Ethan Ward. He worked for our HOA 2 years ago, then vanished after being accused of stealing supplies from the clubhouse. They fired him. Linda filed a complaint. Police said he probably skipped town. But what if he never left? The next morning, I went to the board meeting. Linda still wasn't there. Mark was running things, nervously tapping his pen. He avoided eye contact when I brought up Ethan. Said, "That name sounds familiar." "Why?" I told him nothing, just shrugged and said, "Oh, I saw it in an old file." He looked relieved too quickly, which made me sure he knew something. When I left, I noticed Linda's car was still parked in her driveway, dusty, like it hadn't moved for days. That night, I packed a few granola bars, a bottle of water, and a small flashlight. I told myself I was just checking if Ethan was okay. But deep down, I wanted answers. The door creaked as I unlocked it again. That faint hum was still there. Warmer this time, like someone was awake down below. I lifted the slab slowly, whispering, "Ethan, it's me, it's Daniel." Pause. Then the sound of someone crawling closer. His hand appeared first. Thin, pale, shaking. Then his face, unshaven, sunken, with dark circles under his eyes. He squinted at my flashlight, then whispered, "You shouldn't be here." I handed him the water. He hesitated, then grabbed it like he hadn't had one in days. Drank half of it in seconds. "Why are you here?" I asked quietly. He glanced toward the ceiling, the direction of Linda's house. "She said she'd ruin me if I told anyone." My stomach twisted. "Linda?" He nodded. "She found me sleeping behind the clubhouse a year ago. Said she'd help me get back on my feet. But she didn't. She made me fix her house, her yard, clean that storage room for her. When I said I wanted to leave, she said she'd call the cops. Said I stole tools." He looked at me with eyes that barely had life in them. "So I stayed. She brought me food sometimes, and said as long as I stayed quiet, she'd keep me safe." I just stared at him, trying to process what he'd said. Linda, our perfect HOA president, keeping a man hidden under the storage floor like a prisoner? I whispered, "Does anyone else know?" He shook his head. "Mark came once. He gave me a blanket. Said it was better if nobody found out." I felt sick. I didn't know what was worse, the fact that Ethan had been living down there, or that the HOA board was helping hide him. Suddenly, from outside, a noise. Footsteps. Slow. Crunching gravel. Ethan froze. His eyes widened. "She's here," he whispered. I turned off my flashlight instantly. Everything went black. All I could hear was my heartbeat pounding in my ears. The door above us creaked open. Light poured in. Someone stepped inside. High heels clicked against the floor. Linda's voice. Soft. Cold. "Daniel, I know you're down there." My heart dropped to my stomach. She walked closer, her heels echoing louder. "You shouldn't have come back here." I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Ethan was trembling beside me in the dark, clutching the edge of the floor panel like he was ready to pull it shut. Then Linda knelt down above us and whispered, "You just couldn't leave things alone, could you?" I wanted to shout, to climb out, to ask her what the hell was going on. But before I could, there was another sound from outside. A voice calling, "Linda, everything okay?" It was Mark. She straightened up immediately. "Yes, everything's fine," she called back. Then, almost silently, she whispered again, "We'll talk later." Her heels clicked as she left. The door slammed shut. Ethan exhaled shakily. I did too. My shirt was soaked in sweat. I looked at him and whispered, "She knows I found you." He nodded. "She won't let this go." I swallowed hard and said, "Then tomorrow, we end this. If you were in my place, would you call the cops or confront Linda yourself?" That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside my window made me flinch. Every car that drove by felt like it slowed down a little too long. Linda's words kept replaying in my head. "We'll talk later." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. By morning, I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to the cops, not yet. I wanted proof. Something solid. Because if what Ethan said was true, Linda and Mark weren't just corrupt HOA board members. They were criminals. When I walked outside, the neighborhood looked the same as always. Lawns trimmed like soldiers. Flags waving in the morning breeze. Sprinklers ticking in perfect rhythm. But something about it all felt fake now. Like a set from a movie. Behind every smiling neighbor, there was something hidden. I spotted Linda standing by her mailbox. Perfect hair, white tennis outfit, that same fake smile. She waved when she saw me. "Morning, Daniel," she called, her voice too cheerful. "Sleep well." I forced a smile back. "Like a baby." Her eyes narrowed just slightly. And for a moment, I saw it, the control. The way she studied me like she could see inside my head. She took a sip of her green smoothie and said, "By the way, we'll be replacing the locks on the storage room. Security reasons, you understand." I nodded slowly. "Of course." She smiled. But it wasn't a smile. It was a warning wrapped in charm. I spent the rest of the day pretending everything was normal. But my brain wouldn't stop spinning. Linda was replacing the locks. Which meant she was either hiding something, or moving something. Either way, I had to act fast. So that night, after the sun went down, I parked 2 streets away, grabbed my camera, and walked quietly through the alleys. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and chlorine. Typical suburban peace masking something dark underneath. When I reached the storage room, I froze. The light inside was on again. Through the small frosted window, I could see shadows moving. One tall, one shorter. Linda and Mark. I crouched behind the bushes, my phone camera rolling. They were talking quietly. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught a few words. "Can't risk him talking. Should have left when I told you. It's too late now." My stomach dropped. Linda's tone wasn't nervous, it was angry. She was pacing. Mark stood with his hands in his pockets, head low. Then she pointed toward the floor. And I swear I saw her mouth the word seal. That's when I realized what she meant. She wasn't just changing locks. She was planning to seal that trapdoor. Permanently. I backed away slowly. My shoe snapped a twig. Both their heads turned toward the window. I ducked down instantly, holding my breath. The door creaked open. Linda stepped outside, scanning the dark. Her voice was calm but sharp. "Daniel, you can come out now." I stayed completely still. She walked a few feet forward, heels clicking on the concrete. Then she smiled into the shadows. "I told you we'd talk later." I didn't move. Didn't breathe. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. After a few seconds, she sighed. "Fine. Have it your way." She turned and went back inside. I didn't move until I heard the lock click again. That night, I uploaded the footage from my phone. The shadows weren't clear, but their voices were real enough. I replayed those words again and again. "Can't risk him talking." That was enough for me. I called Ethan on the cheap prepaid phone I'd slipped him earlier. He answered in a whisper. "She's been here," he said. "She took the heater. Said I don't need it anymore." My stomach twisted. "She's going to close it up, Ethan. You need to get out tonight." He hesitated. She'll see me. I'll distract her. He didn't answer, but I could hear him breathing. That quiet sound of fear mixed with hope. I waited until midnight. Then I walked straight to Linda's house. The windows were dark. No lights. No sound. I rang the doorbell once. Nothing. Then again. After a long pause, a light flicked on upstairs, and a shadow moved behind the curtain. The door opened slowly. Linda stood there in her robe, holding a glass of red wine. "Daniel, do you have any idea what time it is?" "I know exactly what time it is," I said. "I just wanted to ask you something." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what's that?" I stepped closer. "Why is there a man living under the HOA storage room?" Her face didn't move for a full 3 seconds. Then she smiled, a slow, calculated smile. "I think you've been watching too many crime shows, Daniel." I kept my eyes on hers. "I saw him. I talked to him. He told me everything." For a brief moment, something flickered in her eyes. Panic. Then it was gone. She took a sip of her wine and said, "You know, spreading false accusations against board members is actually a violation of our HOA bylaws." I laughed quietly. "Yeah, I'll make sure to read those while I call the police." She leaned forward slightly, whispering, "Careful. You don't want to make enemies in this neighborhood." Then she slowly closed the door in my face. I walked back fast, heart pounding. Every porch light felt like a spotlight on me. By the time I reached the storage room, I could see the glow of a flashlight from inside. Ethan was already climbing out, hands shaking, eyes wide. "Come on," I whispered. "We have to move before she notices." He grabbed his small backpack, all he owned, and followed me down the path. We cut through the tennis courts, over the fence, and into the dark street beyond the HOA boundary. Only when we reached the gas station 2 blocks away did we finally stop. Ethan sat down on the curb, breathing hard. "She's not going to let this go," he said. "I know," I replied. "But now she can't hide it either." I called the police right there from the payphone. Told them everything. The hidden space. The man inside. The threats. They said they'd send a unit immediately. But when we got back to the neighborhood, the storage room was on fire. The flames lit up the tennis courts. Neighbors gathered in their robes. Mark was yelling into his phone, pretending to be shocked. Linda stood across the street, arms crossed, watching the building burn with that same unreadable smile. When the police arrived, she was already telling her story. Something about an electrical short and flammable paint cans. They didn't believe me at first, until they found the slab. Underneath the charred floor was a perfectly cut square. Cement edges smooth and sealed recently. Too recently. Ethan sat in the back of the ambulance, wrapped in a blanket. He looked at me once and whispered, "She'll twist everything. She always does." I told him I'd handle it. That I had the video, the voices, the proof. He nodded weakly. And then the paramedic closed the door. I turned back toward Linda's house. She was standing on her porch again, smiling at me. Then she mouthed 2 words through the smoke. "Nice try." That night, I uploaded everything, the footage, the audio, the pictures, to a shared drive. And then I sent it to every neighbor's inbox, anonymously. By sunrise, the entire HOA had seen it. If your HOA president smiled at you like that after everything, would you move out or stay and fight? By sunrise, my inbox was on fire. Everyone had seen it. The footage, the shadows, the whispers under that storage room floor. Neighbors who'd never even spoken to me were suddenly emailing, calling, asking if it was real. It was real. Too real. By the time I stepped outside, 3 police cars were parked near the tennis courts. Yellow tape fluttered across the burned-out remains of the storage room. And a small crowd of neighbors stood watching in their slippers. Linda wasn't there this time. Her silver SUV was gone. But Mark was pacing near the curb, pretending to take calls on his phone. I caught his eye. He froze for a second, then looked away. One of the officers walked over. "Are you Daniel Brooks?" "Yeah." He nodded. "Detective Klein wants to ask you a few questions." Inside the cruiser, the smell of burnt plastic still hung in the air. The detective flipped open a small notepad. "You're the one who reported the man living beneath the HOA building?" "Yes." "Can you confirm his name?" "Ethan Ward. He worked for the HOA before." The detective scribbled notes slowly. "You said you spoke to your HOA president, Linda Kersey, before the fire?" I nodded. "She threatened me." "Indirectly." He raised an eyebrow. "Any proof of that?" I thought about the footage. The way she said, "You just couldn't leave things alone." "Yeah," I said quietly. "I have audio." He nodded once, then said something that made my stomach drop. "Linda Kersey was found dead this morning." I blinked. "What?" He looked up from his notepad. "Single car accident. Highway 17. Around 4 a.m. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. It didn't make sense. Linda wasn't the type to run. She was the type to win. "How bad?" I finally asked. "Instant," he said flatly. "Her car went off the shoulder and hit a divider. No signs of braking." He closed his notebook. "Mr. Brooks, I'm going to need a copy of everything you filmed." When I got home, the neighborhood felt quieter than usual. Too quiet. No lawnmowers. No gossip. Just that eerie calm that comes when people are afraid to talk. I saw Ethan sitting on my porch, wrapped in the same blanket from the ambulance. He looked lost. "They're saying she's dead," he said softly. I nodded. "She's gone." He didn't smile. Didn't even flinch. Just stared at the street. "I told you," he whispered. "She said if I ever talked, none of us would be free again." I didn't understand what he meant, but something in his voice made my skin crawl. That evening, there was an emergency HOA meeting. Mark called it, of course. They held it in the community hall, the one with beige walls and the smell of old coffee. Half the neighborhood showed up, whispering in clusters, clutching their phones. When I walked in, the talking stopped. Everyone turned to look at me. Some with sympathy, some with suspicion. Mark cleared his throat and said, "First of all, we want to express our condolences for Linda. She served this community for 8 years." No one clapped. No one even nodded. He continued, "Secondly, there's a lot of misinformation spreading about what happened in the storage room. I want to assure everyone the HOA is cooperating fully with police. And as of now, I'll be assuming the role of acting president." That's when I stood up. "Did Linda make you hide Ethan down there?" Every head turned toward me again. Mark's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Come on," I said, louder this time. "She made him fix her house. She made him live like a prisoner. And you helped cover it up." A few gasps. Someone whispered, "Is that true?" Mark slammed his palm on the table. "That's enough, Daniel. You're out of order." But his voice cracked when he said it. That's when I noticed something. His hands were shaking. After the meeting, a few neighbors approached me quietly. One of them, Mrs. Collins, leaned in and whispered, "I saw Mark at Linda's house late last night. Around 3. He was loading something into his car." My pulse quickened. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "Positive." I looked over her shoulder at Mark. He was talking to 2 other board members, eyes darting nervously around the room. That's when I realized. Linda's death wasn't an accident. And Mark knew exactly why. Later that night, I walked down to the edge of the burned storage site. The smell of ash still hung thick in the air. The concrete floor was blackened, cracked, but something caught my attention. A small metallic glint near the edge. I knelt down and brushed the soot away. It was a flash drive. Half melted, but still intact. I slipped it into my pocket and went home fast. When I plugged it into my laptop, the folder popped open immediately. 3 files, all labeled with dates. I opened the first one. It was a video. Linda, sitting at her desk in her office. The camera angle was weird, like a hidden camera inside her bookshelf. She was on the phone, smiling. "I told him he could stay there until things cool off," she said. "No one ever checks that building anyway." Then her face turned cold. "But if he talks, I'll make sure he disappears for real this time." My stomach twisted. I opened the second file. It showed Mark, at night, lowering boxes into the trapdoor with a flashlight. And then Ethan's voice faintly asking, "Is it safe?" Mark whispering back, "As long as she says it is." The third video was the worst. It showed Linda arguing with Mark inside the storage room. The date stamp, 1 day before the fire. Linda was shouting, "You idiot! You told him too much." Mark said, "He's scared, Linda. He wants out." Linda stepped closer. "If this blows up, I'll drag you down with me." Then she pointed at the floor. "Seal it. Tonight." The screen froze, then cut out. I sat back in my chair, numb. It was all there. Everything. Linda's control. Mark's guilt. Ethan's nightmare. I stared at the folder for a long time, then did the only thing that felt right. I sent it to Detective Klein. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. "Where did you get this?" the detective asked. "From the fire site." He was silent for a long moment, then said, "Stay inside tonight. Don't open your door for anyone." I hung up, staring at the door like it might start knocking on its own. Ethan was asleep on my couch, exhausted. I could hear him breathing softly, peaceful for once. Then, around midnight, I heard it again. A sound outside my house. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. I peeked through the blinds. Mark. He was standing in my driveway, holding something in his hand. A small metal canister. He looked right at my window and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then he turned and walked away into the dark. I checked my phone. 1 new email. No sender name. No subject. Just a single sentence. Linda wasn't the only one with a secret. If you were me, and just got that message, would you open the next email, or delete it forever? I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in the dark, watching the inbox, refreshing it again and again. No new messages. Just that one line staring back at me. Linda wasn't the only one with a secret. I must have read it 100 times, trying to decide if it was a threat or a warning. Outside, the streetlights flickered against the wet pavement. The burned storage room still reeked of smoke 2 blocks away, and I couldn't shake the image of Mark, standing there in my driveway, whispering into the dark. At 3:12 a.m., another email came through. Same address. No name. Just a video attachment titled inside_truth.mov. My hand hovered over the mouse. I don't know why, but I hesitated. Part of me wanted to delete it. Part of me wanted to know everything. Curiosity won. I clicked play. The video started in total darkness. Then, a flashlight flickered on. It was the same storage room, but the camera was moving, shaky, like someone recording in a hurry. The lens panned over piles of boxes. A rusted toolbox. And then, the floorboards. I saw the trapdoor. Open. The voice behind the camera whispered. "She said we'd be safe here," she lied. The voice was Ethan's. He turned the camera toward his face, pale, terrified, trembling. "She made us build tunnels," he whispered. "They go under half the neighborhood." The screen cut to black. I slammed my laptop shut. My chest tightened. Tunnels. Under the neighborhood? I looked down at the floor, half expecting to hear something moving beneath it. For a long minute I just sat there, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, and the distant chirp of sprinklers starting somewhere down the street. That's when I heard it again. A faint creak. From under the living room floorboards. I grabbed a flashlight and crouched near the vent. The sound came again. Slow, dragging, like someone crawling below. "Ethan," I whispered. No answer. I pressed my ear to the vent, and heard something that made my skin crawl. 2 voices, whispering. Too soft to make out the words, but definitely two of them. I called Detective Klein right then. He picked up instantly. "Brooks." "There's someone under my house," I said, voice shaking. "I swear to God I hear them. Stay where you are. We're sending units." I hung up and backed away from the vent. The whispering stopped. Then a dull thud, like something heavy had been dropped, echoed under the floor. I froze. Then silence. 15 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up. They searched the crawl space. Nothing. No footprints, no disturbance, nothing out of place. The detective looked at me carefully. "Are you sure you weren't dreaming?" "I wasn't dreaming," I snapped. "You think I'm making this up?" He sighed. "Look, Daniel, the flash drive you sent us was real evidence. But we can't find any tunnels. And right now, you're the only person who's seen or heard these things." He handed me his card. "Call me if anything else happens." Then he left. When the headlights faded, I stood alone in the silence again. No sounds under the floor now. No emails. Just that cold, heavy feeling that something was still down there. Ethan woke up around sunrise. I told him everything. He didn't look surprised. "You won't find the tunnels," he said quietly. "They sealed them years ago. But the air vents, they connect." "Connect to what?" He hesitated. "To the old HOA offices. Before they remodeled. Linda kept it secret." He looked at me, eyes hollow. "She made me dig." We drove to the site together later that morning. The ash was still fresh. But beneath the burned flooring, I noticed a pattern. Metal brackets set in a perfect circle, like a hatch. Ethan pointed to it. "That's where it started." We knelt and brushed away the soot. Underneath, the faint outline of concrete seams formed a square door, welded shut. There was no handle. No lock. Just a faint burned mark where it used to open. "Why would she build this?" asked. Ethan rubbed his hands nervously. "She said the HOA needed a safe room. But later, she told me it wasn't for safety, it was for storage." "What kind of storage?" He looked up slowly. "People's information. Financials. Blackmail." I stared at him. "You're saying she had dirt on every homeowner?" He nodded. "She made us scan documents, record board meetings, plant microphones. She said, 'Knowledge is power. And power keeps me rich.'" It made sense now. Linda never needed to enforce fines. She controlled everyone because she knew everything. That's why no one ever challenged her. That's why Mark was afraid of her. But now, Linda was gone. And someone else wanted that power. That night, another email arrived. This one had a subject line. "We know what you found." My heart pounded as I opened it. Inside was a single image. A photo of my house. Taken from the street. With one sentence written across it in bold white letters. "Stop digging." I jumped up, ran to the window, but the street was empty. No cars. No people. Just that same awful silence. I went to check on Ethan. His blanket was there. But the couch was empty. Front door. Unlocked. My pulse spiked. "Ethan," I called out. Nothing. Then I noticed a note taped to the doorframe. "She said you'd come looking for me. Don't." By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove straight to Mark's house. He didn't answer the door. But I saw him through the blinds, sitting at his dining table, staring at his phone like he'd been waiting for me. When he finally opened the door, his face was pale and drawn. "Daniel," he said quietly, "you shouldn't have come." I stepped inside anyway. "Where's Ethan?" Mark shook his head slowly. "Gone." "Gone where?" He hesitated. "Back underground." I stared at him. "You're lying." He looked up, eyes red, trembling. "You don't get it. Linda wasn't working alone. She was protecting someone else. Someone bigger." I leaned closer. "Who?" He opened his mouth. But before he could answer, a loud bang shattered the window behind him. A bullet tore through the wall. Mark dove to the floor, glass flying everywhere. I hit the ground and crawled behind the sofa. A car engine roared outside, tires screeching, and then silence again. When I looked up, Mark was bleeding from his shoulder, shaking. "They found us," he whispered. "You need to leave. Now." I grabbed his phone off the table as I ran out. It was still open to a message thread. The top message read, "Delivery scheduled. 9 p.m. HOA office." No name. No number. Just coordinates. Back in my car, heart pounding, I stared at that message again. Delivery scheduled. At the HOA office. Was Ethan going there? Was someone meeting him? Either way, I knew I had to be there too. That night, I parked across from the abandoned HOA office. The windows were dark, but a faint light flickered from inside. 9:03 p.m. The side door creaked open. Someone stepped out, carrying a duffel bag. Not Ethan. Not Mark. It was someone else entirely. Someone I hadn't seen before. Wearing the same HOA badge Linda used to wear. And when the streetlight hit his face, I realized exactly who he was. The regional director of the HOA Association. He loaded the duffel bag into his car trunk, looked around, and then he smiled. Right at me. Like he already knew I'd be watching. Would you follow him, or call the cops and risk tipping him off? He saw me. I know he did. That faint smirk in the rearview mirror as he pulled away from the HOA office. It wasn't just coincidence. He wanted me to follow. And like an idiot, I did. The car rolled slow down Sycamore Drive. Past manicured lawns. Past houses where porch lights glowed like they were watching. The rain started, light at first, then heavier. His taillights blurred red through the mist. I followed from 2 cars back, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight they hurt. He turned right onto Old Creek Road, the one that led out of the subdivision. No one used it anymore. The HOA had fenced it off after a drainage problem years ago. Except tonight, the gate was open. The director's SUV stopped beside a line of abandoned maintenance sheds. He got out, duffel bag still in hand, and vanished into one of them. I parked a little down the hill and crept closer. The air smelled like rust and wet soil. My flashlight beam cut across cracked pavement. The sound of dripping water echoed like footsteps. Inside the shed, a door stood half open at the back wall. I pushed it slowly. It creaked, loud enough to make my heart jump. Concrete steps led downward. I descended 1 step at a time. The air grew colder, damp, and quiet, too quiet. Then I heard voices, faint, muffled, echoing through metal vents somewhere below. I killed my flashlight and crouched. Payment cleared. No witnesses. The files go tonight. I couldn't see their faces yet, but I knew that voice. The director. And then another voice joined, trembling, scared. Ethan. My stomach twisted. I edged closer until I could see through a gap in the metal grating. They stood in a large underground chamber, concrete walls lined with old file cabinets and dusty computers. Stacks of binders and boxes labeled homeowner reports covered the tables. The director dropped the duffel bag. Unzipped it. Bundles of cash. Ethan said something I couldn't hear. Then the director slapped him hard across the face. "Do you think I'd let Linda ruin everything?" he hissed. "She got greedy. You're lucky I didn't burn you with her." Ethan held his cheek, tears mixing with dust. "I just want to go home." "Home?" The director laughed coldly. "You are home. You built this place." My heart hammered in my chest. The flashlight in my pocket suddenly felt like a weapon. But before I could move, a hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around. Mark. He looked pale, wounded, exhausted. "Don't," he whispered. "You'll get both of us killed." "You knew about this?" I hissed. He nodded weakly. "I tried to stop it years ago. Linda told everyone the tunnels were just old storm drains. But the board knew. They used them to move evidence, cash, documents, everything the HOA wanted hidden." "Why?" Mark swallowed hard. Because the HOA isn't about neighborhoods. It's about control. We crept closer, peering through the vent again. The director was burning papers now, one by one, dropping them into a barrel flame. By tomorrow morning, he said, no one will remember her name. And if anyone talks... He pulled a small pistol from his coat pocket and looked at Ethan. My pulse froze. Please, Ethan begged. I didn't tell him anything. The director pressed the barrel against Ethan's chest. That's when I stood up. Hey! I shouted, kicking the metal grate loose. Both of them looked up, shock flashing across their faces. Ethan gasped. Daniel, run. But I didn't. I jumped down onto the concrete floor, landing hard but staying on my feet. The director turned his gun toward me. You shouldn't have come here. Mark dropped beside me, his voice shaking. Don't do this, Greg. It's over. The director's grin widened. Over? You think this ends with her? There are hundreds of us. Every neighborhood. Every city. I took a step forward. You're bluffing. He chuckled. Am I? He pointed toward one of the computer screens on the table. It displayed rows of live video feeds, different houses, different states, each labeled HOA Surveillance Zone. Every board meeting, he said proudly. Every complaint, every file, every camera tied to this network. HOAs are the perfect cover. No one questions us because they signed for it. He turned the gun back toward Ethan. Now, hand me the flash drive. I realized then, he thought I still had it. I sent it to the police, I said. They've seen everything. His smile faltered for the first time. In that split second, Mark lunged forward, grabbing the gun hand. They struggled. The shot exploded, deafening in the concrete chamber. Ethan screamed. I dove for the gun as it hit the floor, skidding across the room. The director slammed Mark into the wall. Mark collapsed, blood spreading down his sleeve. I grabbed the pistol and aimed it straight at the director. Move again, I said, and you're done. He raised his hands slowly, smiling like he still had the upper hand. You think killing me changes anything, he sneered. There's always another Linda, another Mark, another you. Police sirens wailed faintly above ground. I glanced at Ethan. Cops are coming. Stay down. The director laughed softly. Too late. Then he reached for something in his pocket. I fired once. Not to hit. Just to stop him. He froze. When the officers stormed in minutes later, he was still standing there, hands raised, calm as ever. They took him away. They took Ethan too, for protection, they said. Mark was carried out on a stretcher, still breathing, whispering my name through cracked lips. Detective Klein put a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. I looked back at the underground room. The burned papers. The flickering monitors. The black barrel still smoking. It doesn't feel like it, I said quietly. He nodded. Corruption never does. By the next morning, the story was everywhere. Secret HOA network busted in Suburban scandal. People called it conspiracy. Some called it fake. But I knew what I'd seen. They found tunnels under 7 more neighborhoods, all connected by old maintenance systems built decades ago. Each one wired for security. Each one owned by the same parent corporation. And every one of them had one thing in common. A burned storage room somewhere near the center. 2 days later, a package arrived at my door. No return address. No label. Inside, a small black USB drive. No note. Just one file. Next_neighborhood.mov. I stared at it for a long time, my reflection flickering on the screen. Then I smiled. Not out of relief, but out of fear. Because somehow, I already knew whose neighborhood was next. Mine. If you found that USB on your doorstep, would you plug it in or burn it before it's too late? Fire eyes. I stared at the USB for hours. It sat on my desk like a living thing. Quiet. Waiting. The house was silent. Even the refrigerator seemed to stop humming. It was the same black drive. Same shape. same size as the one I'd found in the burned storage room. Except this one wasn't melted. This one looked new. I told myself not to open it. Not this time. I even walked it to the trash can once. Stood there with the lid open. But I couldn't drop it. Something about it felt unfinished. Like a thread still pulling somewhere deep underground. So I plugged it in. The folder opened instantly. Just one video file. Next_neighborhood.mov. I hit play. Static filled the screen for a few seconds. Then the image cleared. It was drone footage. A bird's-eye view of a suburban cul-de-sac. 7 houses. Perfect lawns. Fresh paint. And right in the center. My breath caught. Someone had filmed my neighborhood from above. The drone lowered slowly, hovering over my house. Then a voice came through the speakers. Not Linda's. Not the director's. But a woman I didn't recognize. "Congratulations, Daniel," she said softly. "You've uncovered the first layer." The camera zoomed closer to my front porch. My own silhouette visible through the window. But there's always another board. Another president. Another HOA. I froze. The voice continued, calm and almost playful. "You didn't destroy us, Daniel. You just got promoted." The screen glitched. Cut to black. Then flashed white text across it. "Welcome to the central board." I yanked the USB out of the laptop so fast it almost snapped. For a moment, I just sat there in the dark. The reflection of that last frame burned into my mind. Central board. I didn't understand. Was it a joke? A threat? A warning? Then, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. "Check your porch." My chest tightened. I crept toward the window, slowly pulling the curtain aside. Nothing. The street looked empty. Silent. Like it always did before something happened. Then I saw it. A white envelope taped to the door. I opened it carefully. Inside, one page, printed in bold black letters. "As of today, you have been elected as interim HOA president. Please attend your first meeting tonight at 8 p.m. And below that, a familiar signature. Linda Kersey. I dropped the paper instantly. It couldn't be real. Linda was dead. I'd seen the crash reports. I'd seen the body bag. But that signature. It was perfect. The same curling loop in the L. The same pressure marks from her old pen. I ran back inside, grabbed my phone, called Detective Klein. No answer. I called again. Nothing. Then, a new text buzzed in. "You shouldn't have called him." My throat went dry. 8 p.m. came faster than I wanted. Every instinct told me not to go. But curiosity, that same poison that had started everything, pushed me toward the door. The community hall lights were on when I arrived. The same beige walls. The same long table. But this time, no neighbors. Just 5 chairs. 4 were already filled. They all turned as I entered. Faces I didn't recognize. Dressed sharp, still, too calm. The woman in the center smiled first. "You made it," she said. Her voice, the one from the video. "Who are you?" I demanded. She tilted her head slightly. "The people behind the homeowners." "What do you want from me?" She laughed softly. "Nothing. You've already given it." She slid a folder across the table toward me. Inside, photos of every person I'd talked to since the first night. Ethan, Mark, Detective Klein, even the mail carrier who'd dropped off the package. Each one marked with a red stamp, assigned. "What is this?" I whispered. "Documentation," she said. "You didn't uncover a conspiracy, Daniel. You completed one." My hands started shaking. "What are you talking about?" "You proved the system works," she said with a smile. "Expose one layer, control the narrative, then rebuild the trust. That's how we grow." She leaned closer. "HOAs aren't about houses. They're about people." I backed toward the door. But 2 men stood up instantly, blocking my path. "You can't just." The woman interrupted gently. "Oh, you can leave, of course. But if you do, we'll simply appoint another." I froze. Then she added, "Or, you can take the seat Linda left for you." The room went silent. The clock ticked somewhere behind me. A slow, heavy rhythm. I could almost hear Linda's voice again. That same cold smile behind every word. "You just couldn't leave things alone." I sat down. Not because I wanted to, but because I finally understood. Every HOA rule, every note, every confrontation wasn't chaos, it was order. A chain. Each president passing power to the next. Each neighborhood feeding the same machine. And now, I was part of it. The woman smiled approvingly. "Welcome to the Central Board, Mr. Brooks." She slid a new set of documents toward me. "Your first task, there's a new development breaking ground in Arizona. We'll need someone to oversee compliance." I stared down at the papers, and froze when I saw the name. Ethan Ward, Project Manager. I looked up sharply. "Ethan's alive." Her smile widened. "He's very loyal now." The other members stood, shaking my hand like it was a promotion, a victory. I felt cold all over. By the time I walked out, the night air felt heavier. The houses looked different. Too perfect. Too symmetrical. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just living in an HOA neighborhood. I was the HOA. That night, I sat on my porch, staring at the paper again. The same name. The same title. President. Across the street, one of the neighbors waved. Smiling the same forced smile Linda always had. I waved back without meaning to. Because maybe that's how it starts. Maybe that's how they all start. With good intentions. And one terrible secret. When I finally went inside, I saw something new on my kitchen table. A small note card. Typed, not handwritten. "We're proud of you, Daniel. Keep the neighborhood clean." I laughed softly. The kind of laugh that comes right before a breakdown. Then I turned off the lights. And whispered to myself, "Welcome home." If you were in my place, would you walk away from the Central Board, or use their power to burn the entire HOA system down from the inside? Fire.